All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen to the presentation. Thank you for those of you who are here. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing. So this is Grad School 101 for the College of Humanities and Social Sciences, so HSS. Before we move forward, I want to invite you all to also give us a follow on Instagram. We have more workshops coming up as well, specifically our Cal State Apply workshop. For those of you who want more specific details on how to apply to the CSU system schools, and also our financial aid workshop. Many people, aren't aware that there is financial aid available for graduate programs. So we do have, our financial aid workshops that are happening throughout the month of November. And so these are the workshops that are happening over the course of the next few weeks. So you're more than welcome to take time to scan the QR code and join us for those workshops as well as to follow us on Instagram. Again, by following us, you'll be able to get updated on those workshops as to when they're happening, registration, all that stuff. And I'll go ahead and upload this PowerPoint to the files at the end. That way you can go ahead and access any information that you may need later on. And just to kind of go over our agenda for the day for this workshop, we'll go over an introduction as to what graduate school is like, how to find a graduate program, what the application process generally looks like, funding opportunities, and other available resources. Again, this is just a tip of the iceberg. We do have other workshops that go more into depth about each specific aspect as well, the application process, the financial aid aspect. So you're more than welcome to join us for those workshops. So why graduate school? What is so, pivotal about graduate school as far as, the opportunity goes? So as far as graduate school goes, you do have greater income potential. Therefore, with a master's degree as opposed to a bachelor's degree, you do have a less of likelihood to be unemployed. There are increased leadership roles. Some roles do require for you to have a master's degree to enter those roles. Some jobs require you to have a master's degree for you to be able to take on those positions. You do have a greater ability to help your family and your community. With graduate school comes, networking, and with that networking, you do get involved with the community more heavily. And with, those opportunities altogether, you do have access to, healthcare and retirement plans. For example, say you go into teaching higher education, you are paying into your retirement fund from your paycheck. So those are kind of things that you do have access to in terms of the opportunities. So here's some potential jobs that you can pursue with a graduate degree. Historian, political scientist, economist, public administrator, media planner, interpreter, translator. And these are just some of them. These aren't all of them, of course. But these are some of the differences in salaries that you can see that they are in the several tens of thousands of dollars as far as the salary differences go. And this also varies, from state to state. It also varies, from cost of living. But this is generally nationwide on average. With a bachelor's degree in sociology, the median salary is around 51K. With a graduate degree, you are looking upwards of 65K on average. Anthropology, 56K versus with a graduate degree, 76K. English, 61K, and with the master's, you're looking at 81. And this goes into thinking, with the master's degree, you do have many more opportunities. Again, if you're interested in teaching at the higher education level, and a master's degree is definitely a good opportunity for teaching at the community colleges. And so what does graduate school look like to begin with? I really liked this this comic strip. Here, it has this person talking to their parent, telling them I'm defending my thesis, and the parent says, great, what does that mean exactly? Well, it means I'm very close to graduating, but there's still the possibility they will fail me and I'll have to stay longer or drop out. And the parent is saying, so you're not done, so I shouldn't get too excited. And it's, well, a little excited would be good, because when you're completing your thesis, it means that you're right at the end of completing your program. So what does graduate school look like in terms of structure and knowledge? So in terms of structure, you are gaining the opportunity to have autonomy. So when it comes to research or research interests, you're more able to be able to contribute to that research area. Whereas with undergraduate programs, you have a structured curriculum, you're learning what's prescribed to you, versus graduate school, you're learning based off of your personal interests. You do have your prescribed courses, but you are able to delve into the research that really interests you. In terms of knowledge, in undergraduate programs, you're really expected to learn what's already out there, versus with graduate programs, you're really contributing to new knowledge. With the research you're contributing to, it's perhaps, knowledge that might not be already known, or it might be a different perspective that you're contributing to. So it really is a different approach to learning. And so academics is also a key aspect of graduate school. With graduate school, you are expected to maintain a 3.0 or above. Anything below that will place you on academic probation. So that goes to say, though, if you, for example, get a B minus and an A, you're taking 2 classes and they average out to a 3.0, then you should be fine. But for example, if you get 2 C's and you get, that like 2.0, then you would be placed on probation. Even if those classes are considered passing, it does have to average out to that 3.0. And you have to make sure you're paying attention to what your program requires, because for some programs, a C or better is okay, or B, they'll only accept a B or better. So you have to make sure you're really paying attention to the fine print. Classes for grad school tend to really meet on average once a week, and they tend to be about anywhere from 2 to 4 hours long, so on average about 3 hours. And these classes are structured a lot different than lectures are in undergraduate programs. So for example, say that you come into class and your classes are very much they might be discussion based. You might have a reading over the week, and you might be able to come back and discuss those readings with your colleagues. And you spend the whole entire section of the class just talking about what the readings were about. And then, you go and do more research on that area, the content area related to what interests you. And, a unit load really does look a lot different as graduate students. The average unit load is 6 to 9 units. However, some programs do require you to take more units depending on if an internship is required. So some students might be able to, or might be taking 12 to 15 units. So you might see some programs that are 30 unit long programs, some are 45, but they're still 2 years rather. So that's something to kind of take into consideration. What kind of program are you looking into? Is it, is it a cohort-based program? Are you looking into taking or rather, is it a 2-year program, a 3-year program? Is it 9 units on average? Are you taking 12 units? So you really have to kind of look into that and see what's feasible for you as well. And then there's the culminating experience aspect. With culminating experiences, you are kind of required to decide, well, what am I going to do in order to, as my final assignment rather, in order to prove that I'm ready for graduation? So some people choose a thesis, some people choose a project, some people choose comprehensive exams, and some programs will only let you choose one or the other, or they might only have one option for you. So you really have to kind of think about that as well. If you have 2 options, which option is the best one for you? If you have 1 option, how are you going to approach that option? And if you have all 3, same thing goes, what's going to be the best for you? And that goes to say as well, how do you find the right school and program? As you move forward in applying, you should be doing your research. There might be similar programs with similar descriptions, even at the same school. Um, and you might be asking yourself, well, how do I know which one is the right one for me? So it's important that you are able to discover your interests, that you're doing the right research, and that you're preparing for the application process. There might be very similar programs, but their application process looks completely different for each program. And so you might decide to go for one program or over the other one because of the application requirements. For example, one might require you to take the GRE and one might not. So those are really important aspects to kind of take into consideration as you're doing the research. Other ways to really expand on your interests are to attend local, regional, or national conferences. If you're into research, if you're wanting to contribute to research, this is a really great way to see how other people are presenting their research, or for you to present research that you've already done as an undergraduate. Other opportunities are, to join national discipline organizations. For example, there are honor societies for your disciplines, and for psychology, sociology, even for English. There are honor societies. Another aspect that you can go ahead and do is also volunteer. Maybe you might be interested in pursuing, working in government. So how do you go ahead and approach that? Volunteer opportunities are a great way to do that, and especially if you're planning to network. And that goes back to internships. What internship opportunities are available in your field that you might be able to take on. And then the last one is to take extra upper division courses, whether that be to declare a minor or just to take classes to kind of expand and see what your interests are. One example is when I pursued my master's, I actually decided to pursue it in the field that my minor was in. As opposed to what my major was in, and I actually, decided that that was the best route for myself. So you could always end up deciding the same for yourself. One really important aspect that I would recommend also is get to know your faculty in your program now. It's important to for you to be able to communicate with them both in the classroom and outside of the classroom. Show up to office hours, ask questions, especially if you have similar interests as your professors. Find out where they went to grad school, what kind of research they're doing, what kind of research they've done in the past, and have them get to know you. What are your academic interests? Who are you as a person? And this is really important because as you move forward and you're applying to programs, many programs will require you to use letters of recommendation. And if a professor doesn't really know who you are, they might be less inclined to write you a letter. So this aspect is really important too. And that's not, and to kind of expand on that, they might know someone at another institution who might be able to, refer you to their program, or to another program, or for jobs, for internship opportunities. So if they're aware of what your interests are, they might be able to help you network in that area. Say, for example, you're interested in doing research in a very specific niche, and they know someone at a university out of state. And they say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and refer you to Dr. So-and-so at Ohio State. And they might be able to refer you, and you can end up, getting into that university with, funding opportunities. And it goes back to, did you get to know who your faculty was and expand from their network as well? And that goes back to, how do you find a school and a program? Do research. What is a criteria for you in a school? Are you looking to stay locally? Is your family a big aspect? Are you a parent? Is your job also an aspect to you deciding to stay closer to home? Are you, maybe getting married, or are you taking care of loved ones? Those are really big aspects to kind of take into consideration. And create those lists based off of those needs as well, but also choose graduate programs that fit your goals. You can think about really amazing schools, but for example, maybe their programs aren't as highly ranked as, for example, smaller, less known schools, or schools that maybe have less clout, quote unquote clout. For example, you might want to, I know that, for example, business degrees, you might want to I don't think there's any business majors here, but just as an example, people are looking into schools like UCLA or USC or Stanford, but are overlooking some of the CSUs. And some of the CSUs have graduate programs, MBA programs that are just as highly ranked as the UCs or private schools like Stanford or USC. And so you might be overlooking those schools because of the name of the school versus the ranking of the program. And that goes back to also find schools that match your financial goals. Are you going to go private or are you going to go public? You know, a lot of people are unaware of the funding opportunities that are available at the CSU level. And we'll go ahead and talk about that in just a bit. These are just some of the resources, you know, that you can use to gather information about those schools. Again, reach out to your professors. Where did they go to grad school? If you're interested in, you know, doing similar work to what they've done in their past, where did they go? How can you expand on, you know, where they've gone? Are you wanting to attend the same universities that they did? And reach out to them. You know, send them your resume and say, hey, how can I be a better candidate to apply to this grad school you might have gone to? And then do your own research as well. You know, there are plenty of tools online where you can search up grad schools. And if you're looking into the CSU, there are also plenty of tools on the CSU website. And so once again, I will be uploading these slides in the chat box toward the end as well, so you all have access to them. Let's see. And so are there any questions as of now that I might be able to answer? And there's still more. So if you have questions that might not have been answered yet or that you're still waiting on answers for, just sit tight. But if there are any questions about what I just went over, you're more than welcome to ask now. So how would a gap year affect your chances of getting accepted into a graduate program? That honestly depends on the program. Some students take a gap year because, for example, their program might require work experience. So like, for example, some MBA programs might request that you have, you know, anywhere from 1 to 5 years of work experience. So students who go into those programs might be generally older, who have professional experience. So that might be the case with those programs. But one thing that I want to reassure you of is that there is no right or wrong time to go to grad school. Everyone has their own timeline, and you have to just generally choose what's right for you. If you want to take a gap year and you feel like that's the best option for you, if you feel burnout, you know, especially with the pandemic, that's totally okay. It shouldn't affect your chances of getting into grad school so long as you finish your degree with the requirements that you need in order to graduate, and then you maintain those connections with your professors, because ultimately they'll be really amazing resources when it comes to writing letters of recommendation. So even if you take a year off, even so long as you finish strong and you meet requirements for programs you're considering, that's the only thing that really matters, that you're able to kind of look back at your transcripts and say, hey, I meet these requirements for this program. I'm going to apply. I took a year off. It's okay. No big deal. Again, there's no right or wrong time to apply. So what if you don't have any volunteer or internship experience? Some programs don't look at your professional experience, and it just depends on what your program or major is. So for example, some programs like business or even like public administration, you can look at the Career Center. The Career Center is an amazing resource for finding those opportunities through Titan Connect. If you haven't had access to that, I recommend you all definitely looking into that. They do post job opportunities, and to have research experience, for example, what that generally means is, say, for example, you have a professor and they're doing research through a grant and they need, for example, an assistant. You can say, hey, professor or Dr. So-and-so, can I participate in your research? And they'll say, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. You can be brought on as like a research assistant. And that's research that you can go ahead and do with your professors. And sometimes you'll be able to get paid through those as well, even at an undergraduate level. if you need to take an extra class during a quote unquote gap year, that's totally okay as well. Some people do that in order to raise their GPAs. However, it's also important to look at the admission requirements. Some programs or some students generally like think about, oh, I don't have a 3.0 GPA, but some programs, the fine print says the last 60 units. So make sure you're paying attention to that fine print as well, so you're not forced to do any extra work that you're not needing to do, and that you're not, for example, putting yourself through any extra stress. If you want to jump into you know, a graduate program and you say, oh, I don't have that 3.0, what am I going to do? It's like, well, do you have the 3.0 or do you not because of your last 60 units? Are those like at the 3.0? And so someone's asking, will it affect your application if you don't have any volunteer or internship experience for the MSW program? That honestly, it really depends on who is evaluating your application and how you look as an applicant. If you're afraid that you might not have volunteer experience, one thing that I would recommend doing is reaching out to someone in the MSW program. Even if you don't know them personally, I always tell people, pick someone at random, someone that you know, read their bios, read their descriptions on the directory, because they all have bios, and see which professor you resonate with, and reach out to them. Because chances are they're going to go ahead and respond and give you some advice and give you some clarification. And, you know, I've done that in the past and it's helped me a lot navigating, you know, my experience through grad school and now my current doctorate program. You know, so it's one of those things, make sure that you're able to feel comfortable enough to do that. Because those people, if you do get into the program, those people are going to be a great help throughout the program as well. And again, it goes back to who they know. If you feel like you don't have any experience that might help you, they might know someone, because remember, especially for MSW, these people have been in the field. So chances are they still know people. They're still connected with their community, with the MSW community. So that's something that I recommend as well. So is there an expiration date? So the way that letters of recommendation work, it's depending on which program you're applying to, they receive a request from Cal State Apply, because it's usually through Cal State Apply. They'll receive a request directly to their email. So it's not that there's an expiration date, because you won't receive a physical letter. Usually they'll send the letter either directly to the department or through an email through Cal State Apply. So you'll never personally be handed a letter. So how did I get funding for grad school? So I'll go ahead and talk about that in just a second, moving forward. So the first part I want to talk about is the application process, which many of you seem to have questions about. So let's see. So there's 2 steps to the admission process. So you have to apply to the CSU, which is through Cal State Apply, and then check to see also if there's a department application or if there are department materials that you need to submit. So the first one is, again, applying through Cal State Apply. And so that's through calstate.edu/apply. The applications opened up on October 1st and they close on varying dates, and it varies from program to program. And so then after that, you have to make sure that you are, maybe if you need to submit materials to the program or the university, that you're submitting those as well. If, for example, you attended community college or you transferred in, making sure that those transcripts are on file as well. So making sure, calling in, double checking that they have those if you're applying. The other aspect has to do with the specific requirements for the program. So check if there's a supplemental form that you need to submit. For example, they might ask you, have you taken these prerequisite courses? Have you taken this exam? And if you're unsure about those, then you email the program advisor. They all have program advisors, whether it be through the college itself or through the program itself. And usually you can find those directly on the program website, the contact information, as well as any supplemental requirements that you might need to send. Again, you have to meet both the university admission requirements as well as the program. So Locally, the requirements for admission requires like a 2.5 GPA, but the program requirements might require like a 3.2 or 3.0. So you have to make sure that you're meeting both the admission requirements, that you're not just meeting one and not the other, that you're submitting all your letters. Some programs require maybe one letter of recommendation, some might require two, recommend three, some might require three, and some might not require any letters of recommendation. It all really depends on the program. Again, this is going back to checking and making sure that you are fulfilling the requirements of the application through the program. Every single program is different, especially in the College of HSS. No one program will have the same requirements, especially with like prerequisites. You might need to take certain classes, especially if you're looking into maybe like counseling or psych. All going to have different requirements for admission. These are some of the programs that are offered in the College of HSS. So there's gerontology, geography, psychology, clinical psychology, American studies, history, public administration, anthropology, linguistics, sociology, English, political science, Spanish, environmental studies, psychology, and TESOL. And so as far as having this meeting emailed, we will be uploading it to YouTube later down the road. I'm not sure how long it's going to take for us to do that. But if you check back on the initial email that I sent out with the registration links, if you check on the email signature, there is a link to our YouTube channel as well in my email signature. So once it's uploaded, it will be there and you can access it using that link. So are there any questions about the application process? Just to kind of pause here. If you do need support with the application materials, for example, if you need someone to review your resume, some programs do require resumes. The Career Center is an amazing tool to do that. They do actually review resumes, even your personal statements and statements of purpose. Many programs do require those. And they can also help you prepare for mock interviews. Some programs do require an interview for the program admission. So you can actually go ahead and see people in the Career Center for those. And I'll go ahead and post the link. I know that the link's also in the PowerPoint at the end. And for the Career Center, you do have to set up an appointment. They do have quote unquote like drive-through hours where walk-ins are welcome. But again, it's better to always set up an appointment. So if you have not previously received financial aid as an undergrad, can you get financial aid for grad school? Yes, so I will go ahead and discuss how that looks like and what that means. So one thing about grad school that's different as an undergrad is that you're considered independent. So if in the past, for example, you had to put down your parents' financial aid information, that will no longer be the case as a grad student. You're considered now independent. So your parents, again, income is no longer a factor. Even if they can still claim you on their taxes, you no longer are considered a dependent for financial aid purposes because you now have that bachelor's degree. So that's going to be the case from then on. So as far as the funding goes, at the state university level, at the CSU level, there is what's called a state university grant. And so yes, when you're filing your FAFSA, you make sure you file as independent. Because it will ask you, have you earned a bachelor's degree before, et cetera, et cetera. So you must file your FAFSA or California DREAM Act by March 2nd. Currently, the FAFSA applications and CDA applications are now open. My one big suggestion is if you know where you're going to apply to grad school, file your FAFSA application now. Even if you haven't filed your grad school applications, but you know where you're going to apply, file your FAFSA now. That way, when the grad schools receive your admissions applications and you decide where you're going to go, if for whatever reason there are holds for financial aid and they need extra paperwork, the sooner you submit that extra paperwork, the sooner your financial aid gets processed, because schools do run out of financial aid money, especially the state university level. The state university grant is not a guaranteed funding opportunity. So make sure that you're submitting that paperwork for your financial aid, for that FAFSA application. And again, all you have to do is go on studentaid.gov and click on renew your FAFSA, and you just make sure you're adding the schools that you're going to be applying to. There's also student loan opportunities. So currently the federal direct unsubsidized Stafford loan, which is a general student loan, is at 5.28%, which is actually higher than we've seen in prior years. Again, you have to complete the master promissory note and the loan entrance counseling if you do want to take out those additional student loans. And one of the reasons you might want to take those out is the state university grant does not cover the student fees. So say, for example, you're granted the state university grant and it covers all your tuition except for those fees. Those fees can vary depending on the campus that you choose. And they're as low as about $125 per semester at the cheapest campus, and $360 per semester at the most expensive campus. And those two campuses are Cal State LA and Cal State Bakersfield. So the cheapest one is Cal State LA, the most expensive is Cal State Bakersfield. So you're never gonna see out-of-pocket fees if you're getting the state university grant exceed those $360 per semester, even if you're choosing one of those two campuses. The direct plus loan for grad students, those do require a credit check. And that student loan rate is 6.28%. And that's as current as 9/16/2021. There are also opportunities to receive scholarships as grad students as well. Here's just some of them. There's the Earl James Weaver Graduate Essay Prize. And those are for students who are studying American Studies. There is a Schweitzer Research and Creative Activities Scholarship, and those are for both graduate and undergraduate students who are in the College of HSS. There's also the Alumni Association Student Scholarship, the Chicano Latino Faculty and Staff Association Scholarship. And again, those are the criteria for those scholarships and the award amounts. Again, I'll upload this so you have it at the end. And we also have the Palanta Fellowship Program, which actually is the program that I oversee. And so with this program, you are given a faculty mentor, you are given mentorship meetings, you are meeting with your cohort. You do have a cohort of, right now it's 68 students, and you are given $500 per semester of the year that you're granted this award, so $1,000 in total. And the application requires one letter of recommendation as well as the application form. As of now, we haven't set a deadline for the spring, but it will be opening in the spring. There's also the Graduate Equity Scholarship, or Fellowship rather, and it aims to help those, especially those who are interested in pursuing, for example, like a PhD. It really helps them in expanding like research opportunities. And so this one requires an application form, a personal statement, and a letter of recommendation. And again, this one will open up in the spring as well. As far as opportunities for employment, there are opportunities as well on campus for teaching assistantships. And so as far as getting application fees waived, for the CSU, there are no application fee waivers, unfortunately. For the UCs do it based off of your financial need. So for example, if you received financial aid as an undergraduate student, you would submit like your financial aid award notification, which tells you your expected family contribution. And that's how you would get your UC applications waived. But at the CSU level, there are no fee waivers. The fees for the application are $70 currently, which is up from prior years. So with the teaching assistantships, you can find those through the Career Center, through the individual colleges, the departments, or especially faculty members. And so what a teaching assistantship does, it gives you the opportunity to teach your own classes as a graduate student. So this is actually an opportunity that I had as a graduate student, and it's awesome because it does give you that opportunity to teach which looks great on your resume if you plan on teaching at, for example, the community college level, or if you're looking to pursue a PhD later on in the future and you want the same opportunities once you pursue that. And does adding a minor help in getting accepted to grad school? The only case that I would think that the minor would help is if you either needed like the GPA boost, or for example, if it related to what you're getting your graduate degree in. So not all the time will a minor, really help you or hurt you. So it's generally how you want to approach, getting a minor. Kind of ask yourself, will this help me in this program or getting into this program? But again, it's all up to you if you feel it, being necessary for yourself. Sometimes people get minors as something like self-fulfilling. They want it for themselves. They don't want it, they might want to minor in Spanish and they're majoring in biology and they want to apply to med school. In those cases, sometimes those minors do help because it makes them look more competitive. But in other aspects, it might not really make a difference. So it really just depends on how you feel about it. And so, as you transition into grad school, there are also other resources within our office, the Office of Graduate Studies and Project Upgrads that do help students, with that transition. So the Office of Graduate Studies is located in College Park, CP 950. So we're on the 9th floor. We're currently, open from Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. That's our website. I know quite a few people have set up appointments with me. And so currently I'm fully booked up until the first week of November. However, once those appointments start opening back up, you're more than welcome to look to set up an appointment with me if you have questions about grad school applications. Again, programs do have applications that are due on rolling bases. So you might, for example, have an application that's not due till March. So you're still more than welcome to meet with me up until your application's due. So someone asked that they've tried to do research on good GPAs for grad school. So that goes back to, each program will have their own requirement. So for example, you might look at one program and their requirement for a GPA might be 3.5. One might be like a 3.2 and one might be a, 3.0. And so I'm going to give you all a really good example about GPAs, and I'm going to use myself as an example. I had a very terrible GPA as an undergrad. I actually was academically disqualified. I had a 1.51 GPA. And then I went to community college for a year. I finished my associate's degree and I went back to where I went for undergrad. And I ended up getting a 3.0 for my last 2 years, my cumulative GPA. So I graduated with an average 2.24 GPA. That was what it averaged out to within like my whole entire degree. But if you looked at like my last 60 units, that's where my GPA really shined because it wasn't taking into consideration where I was really struggling academically. And so a lot of programs won't look at your GEs, they'll only look at your upper division requirements because a lot of programs recognize, hey, your upper division requirements are the only ones that really take into factor what relates to this program. So you're not going to really be worried too much about your overall GPA. In many cases, you're going to be looking at your upper division work. So as far as where I did my master's, I actually went to Cal State LA. So that's where I went for my master's program. So I went to another CSU. So the same process that you all will be pursuing rather if you're applying to Fullerton for your master's program, it's very similar to what I did back when I applied. As far as when is the right time to start applying for grad student scholarships and programs? So programs open up the fall prior. So say, for example, you're looking into applying for fall 2022. you'd be applying fall 2021. So right now is the application cycle just opened for this upcoming fall, so from a year from now. And so you'd be applying for your scholarships, for your FAFSA, for your admissions program, or to your program. So you'd be doing all of that within like the year prior. So say, for example, Andrea, that you are looking to applying for fall 2023 because you graduate spring 2023, you'd be applying fall 2022. So you wouldn't be applying till next fall. Let's see. Awesome. Let's see. And so, throughout grad school, once you all are grad students, there are also other forms of support. We do, give academic policy support, advising, graduation check support. And then there's also the GSSC, which is a Graduate Student Success Center. And so right now it's not currently open because of the pandemic. But it is a study space for graduate students exclusively, where, we do host graduate workshops like this one. There is graduate success consultants. And again, it is a study space with whiteboards, charging stations, computers, etc. Are there any further questions that I might be able to answer?